Hey everyone, it's Gankun, and today we're going to do a recap on some of the past events we were at the past few weekends and the Z Ginga deck. So, for anyone who wasn't aware, a couple weeks ago we had played at the Los Angeles Rise Cup at LA Comic Con and the New York qualifiers. So, for LA Comic Con Rise Cup, we did go home with the first place. We played Z Ginga and went through all the rounds of Swiss, all the top eight cut, came out with first, and I'll go over the deck and the different matchups we faced and kind of what went into the final version of this deck. And then we actually taken that exact same deck, was really happy with how it played at Rise Cup, and then we went to New York qualifiers. So spent the long day, a lot of matches, but we came home with third place. So we got the winner Omega card here, really cool. It says Ultra League Championship 2026, so you can see it in the flavor text in the background. And we got this really cool third place trophy for Ultraman Card Game. So came home with all of this, and it was really a great weekend. Really fun meeting everyone in New York again, and playing with new faces, old faces, and seeing what we could do with these decks. So then to really talk about what went into this deck. So we had played this deck for the uh, past couple Galaxy Cups. I had the video originally for the Z Ginga profile, and then we did some testing. If anyone was catching the streams, Jerry and I we were testing out this deck against the Ginga Victory, Belial, various different types of decks out there, Rosa Blue, to try and figure out like what's the best version of this I could take to these big events. So we're gonna go over the deck profile and then like what is in the final version of this. So we went to Rise Cup and played 3 rounds of Swiss, played against the Belial, was able to win that, played against Durian actually and beat his Belial, and then a Rosa Blue, which we actually lost to in Swiss. Then after playing against those, we went to top eight and finally played against a Belial deck again. Same player, played against a Art Dyna, was able to win that, and then played as Eton. So, or sorry, a Omega for the finals. So with that, we were able to win Rise Cup and take home the beautiful like Gaia winner card. So with this deck, some of the really key things that differs from before is the new level twos and level threes we actually ended up switching to. So we have here with this deck, very similar at least to a start, 8 level 1s. These are your draw card and your BP grade up against like Power Hazard. Nothing too fancy here. 8 is a good number for building triples. And then we actually went to still with 12 level 2s, but we actually switched to this one. So we had 2 of the Z's that get a BP grade up against arm type, and then 2 that have a 12k double. So with this one, 12 is a good number, gives us plenty of doubles and triples we can build. And for these, previously I'd run 4 of these. I do run His Majesty's Middle in here, so we're always able to change into an armed type. And armed is actually really good against Ginga Victory. If you play this as a double, you pretty much beat any Victory double they could play. So because this would become a 14, Victory caps out at 12 or 13, and since it's speed type, it doesn't get the BP grade increase. So it was really good against Victories, but then against all the other decks like Arc, who has a lot of like 11k doubles, this wasn't quite enough, which is where this one actually helps getting lead turn 2, turn 3 to play our scenes as a 12k. And they're both speed types, so they're really good against Ginga Victory still. Uh, Pretty good into some kaijus like Golba, being able to dodge those types, and you don't see a lot of BP grade increase against speed types, so uh, that was the decision here. I still kept it 50-50 just because it was really useful in the Gengar Victory, and that was a deck I was expecting a lot of matchups into. So these were level 2s that we ended up playing against. So then we had our level 3s. So we're running 3 of the Z's that give a Beta Crescent Slash that lets you discard a scene and draw some cards. We have the 3 Starter deck Z, since we are running His Majesty's Medal, we still have 3 of the Gamma Futures, 3 of this other one, and then 4 of the Triple RZ. So for these ones, previously I think I might have had 4 of these and 4 of these. So what I found with testing this deck is in a lot of those matchups, like specifically Zeton, when you're playing against Belial, 14k is a strong baseline you'd want to be able to hit. So Zetons, if they play as a double, are always 14k, and there's a lot of other 14k or 13k doubles. So if you're able to play 14k, you're pretty often able to take lead on turn 3. So if they play Zeton, I play this, and with a 1k bump from the triple R, I can break 15. 14 will beat most other 2-3 doubles against the game, so it was a really solid number to hit with this deck, which has access to additional BP increases and really wants to be able to take lead as needed. So with these, this is like where we ended up with. These are always helpful at the 17k triple, 13k double, good number, and then you can use it to play some scenes, get some extra cards, really important. The starter deck Zs were still really good into victories, being able to get a BP grade against a victory lane. Then, with a 1k, you're always able to flip that to a win later. Always handy. And then with His Majesty's Medal, you can keep lead once you're able to play this on the front. This one now isn't helpful against every deck since it is a 16k triple. But this Gamma Future, I can, if I'm next player, exile 3 Zs and then give one of my Zs plus 2000. And this is really good against Kaiju decks, so we expected to face a lot of Belial, and this was always helpful against Belial, just being able to give plus 2000. This will, as a triple, will tie or beat any Zeton lane, and be able to flip other lanes. That plus 2k even means this could potentially tie, and then with this beat a Belial 18k. So pretty solid into the Kaiju matchup, which this deck is normally weak against. We just already talked about how this card was really the MVP of Rise Cup for me, being able to hit those 14Ks, really solid performance, and then of course your triple R. So with this one, discard a card from hand and give a 1000 increase. So these were all the Zs we'd played. So these level 3 Zs able to really do a number and win the matchups. And then what we had left was our Gingas. So we played a pretty standard 4-4 Ginga. Nothing too much to talk about here. It wasn't really too difficult to have more than one double on the field. For the scene searches, I did stick with scene searches instead of the recycle to draw 2 cards. Because typically if I were playing Gingas, they were always being played as a double. And then any cases where I wanted to play this as a single, one, it was to make sure I had the scene, very key win condition for this deck, and also getting extra discards into, or extra cards in your discard pile is actually really good for things like this next player Z or the scene card. So with that, not too fancy, but really solid Ginga package there. And finally, our scenes and a surprise card. So sticking with 7 scenes, it was a really good number I was happy with. So one great thing about this deck is that this deck can actually recycle cards pretty easily. You're always able to discard a card from hand, give it 1000, so these cards never get clogged in your hand compared to like playing other decks. Since we're playing a lot of scene searches, being able to hit a scene gets you a free card, and then getting a card is always another plus 1000, so always solid. And with this specific ratio, these are round 0 scenes. So if you actually have this in your starting hand, and I try to take lead with this deck, I start off the game being able to draw another card, and with a scene, which, with some of these arm types, or this one being able to draw another card, always handy to have like a round 0 scene, but not too many of them. This is always the scene you really want to build to, and then when this scene gets out on the field, usually you can win the game, unless they're able to clear it before you activate its effects. So 7 scenes, solid number. And then lastly, the Zeton. So Zeton, also the second MVP of Rise Cup. Just like we were talking about with the scenes, this deck is pretty good at not having cards get stuck in your hand, whether it's these draw 1 or draw 2, put 1 on the bottom, these put 2 at the bottom, draw 2, discarding cards for the 1000. Pretty much not worried about getting things clogged. So this Zeton actually became really handy. So I could use this in 2 different ways. So we did play Omega at the end, and this was able to power through and become a 20k instant pretty much win against any Omega decks. And against decks that are heavily one-sided, like Arc, Hikari decks, or Nexus Tiga decks. Like those are usually heavily Tiga, heavily Arc. So playing this turn 2, you can actually kind of scare your opponent. If they play like Tiga Tiga lanes 1 and 2, and you play this, they pretty much have to play their Nexus in lane 3, even if they don't have like a full like 2-3 Nexus or a Nexus triple they can build. So then you're able to play like these 14k doubles, and you usually guarantee you win that lane. And then from there you can get your scene and win the rest of the game. So pretty handy toolkit. Though you can't throw in a Zeton in any deck, I would say, just because this deck is really good at being able to recycle and get rid of cards you don't need. So this is the updated Z Ginga deck. And then going into the matches, it might make a little more sense, like why I wanted to play this way, and then why I ended up getting rid of some cards and adding some others here. So first talking about Rise Cup. For Rise Cup, just like we were saying, faced a lot of Belial. These 14k here, really key with being able to go toe-to-toe with any Belial lane, and then later flip with either of these, the 1k to beat any Zetons. So Belial's, this gave me a lot more of a fighting chance against Belial than I thought I previously had, doing some earlier testing with Durian. Okay, so from there, then, Rosa Blue, we did end up losing in Swiss, just couldn't really get the cards I needed. And then, when Rosa Blue has a good hand, they have a good hand. They can do a lot of BP grade increases, decreases, and win that game. Arc Dyna, that one was also a really close game. Gingas were always key. Being able to put these guys in lead lane helps you hold off Dyna from being able to play more scenes. And then for Omega, it really came down to just drawing into Zeton for multiple of those games. And then when you play this as a 20k, you just have to focus on how you win the other lanes, and you're usually able to pull something through. So with this was the Rise Cup win. So then took this to New York. We did play Bolton and as deck A, and this is deck B. I won't speak too much about Bolton. People are familiar with what the deck can do already, so it's very powerful and very competitive, especially in like a big event like that, and where you're not seeing a lot of Boltons. So for deck B though, because you still need to win with 2 decks for a 2-deck format, this was the deck I wanted to go with. It played very well with Rise Cup, and I was confident with this going into the matches. So going over kind of what we had faced in the qualifiers then, first match, we in Swiss went against the Belial deck. Bolton makes short work of Belial, so no issues there. And then this deck against Belial, was able to pull through. Belial does end up having some inconsistent hands, I've noticed with many of the matches I faced. I don't think any of the Belial decks were quite as fine-tuned as like Durian's ratio, so if I with just a little bit of luck, and if they miss any of their key cards, this has a lot of options to power through and beat any Belial deck that's short of luck. So able to take that first round. Then second round, played against the Bolton, against my Bolton, was able to win that. And then we had played against, for their deck Bs, maybe Sikari against this deck. And was surprised to see maybe Sikari again. It still isn't quite the same without its transcended cards, but still can give a good fight. However, with this deck, Mevis usually hits 17k. I have multiple 17k options, and then I can flip ties, discarding a card, and can usually get my scene out. And once this is out, then the game's pretty much over. You can take over and beat any of the Mebius lanes. So was able to Mebius Sikari, then played against Bolton, and won the mirror matchup for Bolton, and then played this against Bolton, and they didn't quite have the card they needed. And then this deck is actually pretty good against Bolton, I'd found. Some really good combos if you're playing this deck against any Bolton matches is that this is a 14k and this is 16k, and with this 2 bump, both of these can become 16k, beating any Bolton 15ks. So these two cards synergize really well against Bolton when you're building triples. Some other examples, Ginga is a double, gonna take care of any Bolton lanes. If you have either of these scenes out, that's an additional couple thousand you can use to then flip your last lanes. So for example, if you have this as a double, scene card will get you to 16, beating that Bolton 15. Or if you have anything in this card, you could use this 3 times. Any of these as doubles can break 16. So this deck actually has more options than I realized against Bolton. So I was able to comfortably play against it and win some of those matches. So from there, then for round 4 of Swiss, played against Ginga Victory with Bolton, and did lose there with Bolton. So we had to then play Ginga Victory and Belial with this. And with that, yeah, this deck was able to beat Belial. Similar cases before. If Belial just doesn't get the triple R out, this deck is able to make quick work before they can get all the kaijus they want. So with that, then finally in the last round of Swiss, played against Durian actually. So we were both 4-0 at that point, and played the Bolton mirror, made some misplays, and he had the better advantage position. There's some interesting tricks to that mirror that could be a topic for another day, but from there then had to play against Durian's Belial, and unfortunately could beat it with Bolton, but could not beat it with this deck. But with that, this was then able to go to top 8, and then we had a few rounds between us and going to Japan. So then first round of top 8, the quarterfinals, probably the most stressful match of the entire event because that is the make or break for qualifying. But played against Belial and Tiga Nexus, so Bolton was able to beat Belial. Pretty good matchup there. This deck that did then lose to Belial. They were able to get the pieces they need and then couldn't keep up. Once those Zetons get on the field, this deck is going to have a hard time. And then we played against Tiga Nexus. So that was a very interesting game, and it really came down to a couple key moments. I believe it was on turn 4, so I was able to take lead turn 3, playing, I think, a 13k double against their Nexus level 2. I was able to get seen on turn 3, and then it came to like a fateful turn 4. So we had the scene out, but they did have their Nexus triple R in hand. They were able to pick it up off of a Tiga level 1 draw, I believe. So what ended up winning the game was actually playing this card as a double turn 4. So like we said, this card, 14k double, is a really important number. So what happened is, so with Nexus, they're able to get rid of my scene. So I'm not able to rely on this to win the game. And Nexus, as a 12k, can give itself 2k when it gets rid of scene. So that would make it 14k. And if this was a 13k double I had played, or anything weaker, would have lost to a 14k. And I think at that point, they also played the other Nexus rare that does a BP grade down. So that was one lane, and I think they had a Tiga 18k in a third lane. So that would have actually ended the game otherwise. But with this one, with the 14k, I was able to tie lead lane, which pretty much prevented them from winning outright. And then the following turn, it just ends up going your way just because the BP down Nexus then reverts back to 12k against a 13k, and then the Nexus triple R, again at 12k against this 14k, so that's 2 lanes automatically winning, so it just was able to win that third lane, and then that was game. So really close game. Barely won that card, or won that event with this card there. So definitely, I think, even if I had to rearrange this deck any further, I might even swap one more of these for another one of these. But that really just comes down to the meta. But with that, then went to the semifinals, played against, again, the Ginga Victory in Belial, and then wasn't able to beat Ginga Victory or Belial with this one, just couldn't get quite the right cards to pull together that win there. But with that, we were still then in 3rd or 4th place, and then we had played a mirror matchup actually for 4th place or 3rd place. And the Bolton mirror, again, I was actually pretty practiced with the Bolt-on Mirror, so was able to win that round. And then for the second game, they actually also played a very similar Z Ginga deck. So we played the Mirror and kind of ended up winning that one with just slightly a better advantage with kind of knowing how the deck can be played a little better. So we actually had the same turn one play. We both played like a level one, level two Z Ginga like this, or Z. And with this, since I had lead, we both played this. I'd end up keeping lead, and then scene searching into one of the Majesty's Medal is pretty much what won me the rest of the game. Playing this gets me a little bit scene advantage. I could draw another card. I was able to draw into a level 1 Z that could draw, and then from there could get the cards I needed to actually win the game. So this is kind of what went down at the New York qualifiers, which ended up, us going home with third place, taking home the trophy, the playmat, and going to Japan. So overall, it was a great event. Really crazy to think about. Jurian and I, if I hadn't heard already, he got first, I got third, so we're both going to Japan. And yeah, it was really excited. And with this deck, a lot went into it. All the streams, testing matches. I think one of the real key things is fine tuning the deck for what we expected to face in the meta. So the two decks I expected to face most were some Boltons, but really Belial and Z Ginga. I did expect to face some more Arc Dynas, though I didn't end up facing any in the New York, but I did face them in Rise Cup. So Belial does actually have a pretty good matchup into this when they're able to hit their Zetons, but playing these 14Ks, these 16Ks, some scenes, really just anything you can to get that advantage if they're not able to hit their triple R. This deck was able to come through and yeah, get us that win. So this was really the thought process into how we modified this deck. Even the Zetons had some funny plays, but they contributed. Switching into these 12 KZs, keeping His Majesty's Medal. I do prefer this scene compared to the other Z scenes, and yeah, so this was the New York qualifying third place deck B, and yeah, just wanted to give this update. Anyone who's still playing Z Ginga, I think this is a pretty solid way to play it. You do have to get used to knowing when to play your doubles to take lead and play scenes, when to like some combos around the round zero scenes and being able to draw extra. And yeah, I think it's still a fun deck to play. Whether or not it holds up in BP4, I think is another question. Still need to test that out. I think this deck in BP5, I guess, it really comes down to consistency. If those level 4 decks are able to draw enough and get enough consistency, then yeah, this might not have quite the firepower needed to beat those heavy lanes. But this deck is really good at capitalizing a lack of consistency from your opponent. So if you're playing against level 4 decks that aren't quite finely tuned, I think this deck could still play very well. These 17Ks can win most lanes. Being able to hit your triples, you can bounce around. And give enough power. And I think this deck still has a lot of good options into taking lead turn 3. And this deck, or this scene, is still going to be very key. If anything, I might even throw in an extra mono Zeton if I'm expecting a lot of level 4s, because again, this deck has a lot of options to not get too clogged with these extra cards here. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Again, really excited that we're going to Japan, I guess, in May, and looking forward to seeing how those Ohio qualifiers turn out, and again, probably come later January, how the LA qualifiers play out. Those will be two really interesting events since they'll be focused on BP5. This was the last big event, I guess, for us in BP4. And yeah, let us know in the comments what you think about Z Ginga, the qualifiers event. With this deck, anyone still wanting to mess around with the decks, try this out, see what you like it. And then let us know what BP5 decks you want to see most next. Yep. Thanks, everyone. Bye.